what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Operation Redwood podcast. This is, as you can tell, a little different approach. We're trying to switch things up and be able to record some more episodes during the week. Unfortunately, we don't all live next to each other, so this is going to have to do. So we're trying out different platforms, different tech, so that we can make these interviews happen online. Today, I'm with my brother, Samuel Johnson. You've heard him before. A lot of you have loved the way he expands your mind and the questions that he asks. So we're here, and these type of episodes are supposed to be meant to be shorter, more direct, and just maybe less conversational. Let's just get into the nitty gritty. So Samuel, thanks for being here, brother.
Yeah, of course. I'm excited. Let's go.
Let's get right into it. Let's get right into it. Yeah, I know. I'm excited, Lo. So this is going to be a little bit of a different pace than what we normally do when we record Saturday mornings. And today I really wanted to, we're in this series about building boys versus mending men.
Yeah, absolutely.
And part of the mending men process, which is you're such an expert at, because that's what you do, right? Giving yourself grace. Now, first of all, what does that mean to you? Or how would you describe giving yourself grace?
Yeah. I like the question. So just for listeners, I think it might be helpful just real quick. I am a mental health counselor, and I work primarily in trauma and couples work. Giving myself grace is something that's necessary for the work that I do. Many of my clients are sensitive, and I don't mean that in the general sense of like, oh, he's such a baby, he's so sensitive. I don't mean it that way. I mean it more in terms of being attuned to danger, right? So if you've been traumatized, you're going to be very attuned to danger. So my clients are hyper aware of things that they perceive as dangerous, right? So we are going to screw up, and what I want to imply about this, so extrapolating this larger than the work that I do, is you don't know when you're going to step on someone's toes. And one of the things that I see a lot of in my profession is an exuberant, that's the wrong word, an exorbitant amount, like this, like tons and tons of like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry I upset you. And I think that is important at first, like, when you're setting the stage with someone, when you're trying to make a connection, I think it's important to let people know that you're in tune with them and that you're noticing that you might have hurt their feelings or upset them, right? I think that's really important. But I think there's a time that comes when we have to help people understand that mistakes are going to happen. A great example of this, I really like this way this woman put it. I'll give a shout out to her for her mentorship and her leadership in this metaphor. Her name is Sue Johnson, and no relationship, unfortunately.
I was like,
yeah.
Unfair.
She developed emotionally focused therapy, and she was I know, just hang with me, Angelo, on this one, but she was a ballroom dancer. Right. So she uses a lot of dancing metaphors, and this metaphor is like, if you want to be a good dancer, you're going to run into your partner. You're going to kick their shins. You're going to step on their feet. It's going to happen. And really good ballroom dancers accept that when you're learning a new way of dancing, you're going to step on somebody's toes. Like, chill out. Like, and understand that the person that you're with wants to be better themselves and also wants you to be better. So if your toes get stepped on, so coming back full circle to grace, extend grace not only to yourself, but also to other people. But yes, I think it's really important to give ourselves grace, especially with high performers. I know you're a high performer, I'm a high performer, and our expectation is up here. And switching metaphors now, something a little bit more manly than ballroom dancing. Although our wives and our partners probably would like the manliness of some ballroom dancing. Anyway.
Yeah. Wait, go back to ballroom dancing. I like that.
You have to rest, right? These guys that like lift weights 7 days a week. No wonder you're not getting stronger. Your body has to rest. last metaphor, right? These guys were being pushed really hard in the African jungle. I've shared this metaphor before, but I just love it. The English men who were exploring were pushing them really hard to get, and they said, "We're not going any further. We're not going today." And the translator was like, "What's happening?" He said, "We need a day for our souls to catch up with our bodies."
I love that. You got the softer ballroom dancing. You got the bodybuilders, and then you got
And
the
something
deep
in the middle. I got
thinkers.
something for everybody.
You got the deep thinkers with their
Yeah, that's right.
soul needs to rest, and then that just rounded out the last couple people in the back. They're like, "What?
That's right. Oh
Okay,
yeah,
got
thanks,
it.
buddy.
I
Thanks.
got it.
Now I get it. Now I get
I
it.
get it now. I get it now."
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, it's like you were talking about, right? We have such a high expectation on ourselves, especially when you are a high performer, right? When you've been able to build or create or do all these things with your hands, right? When you start to build that confidence, it's really easy to not give yourself a little bit of grace because the standards are just, you set the standards for yourself so high. And for the people who are listening, because I know we have a mix of listeners who are kind of newer to the faith, who are just seeking, and they're not really sure what to believe. They're just in it for the conversation and the content. And then there's another set of people who are more heavily who share the same faith, who believe in Jesus, who understand and have heard these terms like grace and, salvation, like the big Christian terms that we're probably used to as we grew up. How would you simplify what grace is for those who are more of like that seeker?
Well, I'll start again, and I think it's helpful to come at it from different angles. You've already
Of
heard that
course.
from me. I think one way of putting it, and you might have heard this, but some of our listeners may not have heard it, right? Um, something that we receive that we don't deserve, riches and things that we don't uh, deserve to have, because in Christianity, our belief is that Christ gave us something we don't deserve from him. So I think grace is largely about receiving something we don't deserve. Now, I think in the world's eyes, to sort of to switch out of a Christian context, which still applies, of course, to Christians, but I think
Mm,
in the world's view, grace is about being respectful, being kind, being open, but I prefer this definition of receiving something, like when you get a gift, when you get a present, right, from someone that you weren't expecting it, and you sort of have that feeling of like, well, I should be giving something back, and the person's like,
mm,
like I just wanted to do something for you, and I think that experience, that feeling, is an emotional response of receiving grace, and then the person, of course, that gives that gift freely, truly expecting nothing in return, is expressing grace. I
mm,
think we tend to think of grace as a noun, but I don't think it is. I think it's very action oriented. I think grace is something bestowed upon us and or we receive
mm.
that isn't deserved.
That's so good. I think that, and I've had this conversation with a lot of business owners that I used to coach and consult for whenever we would kind of go into these conversations about faith and grace. And one of the hardest people to under the entrepreneurs have a really hard time accepting grace. And I love your definition of it. Something that we're given, that something we receive that we don't deserve. Because in that entrepreneurial grind, that entrepreneurial mindset, you have to work for everything you get. When you build, when you create, you have to produce it with your own hands. And if you don't do the work, it's not going to get done. So to receive anything for free, I mean, we're the type that we don't even like handouts. We're the type that we don't like participation trophies. We don't want our kids to all get a trophy, even though this team really did win first place and they worked hard and they won the tournament or they won the league, whatever that looks like, right? We don't, I mean, I don't believe in, right? But as an entrepreneur, I could see these men and women having a really hard time to like, wait, what do you mean I get it for free?
I'm going to turn this around and ask a question of the interviewer. Where do you think that comes from? from in entrepreneurs? Where do you think that
I
comes
think
from?
it's a dependency on ourselves
Okay.
because I mean, my upbringing, like we didn't come from much. My mom was dirt poor from the Philippines, and coming here to America, I was born here before Samuel Johnson tries to claim that bounty.
I have
Red,
ice
white,
on speed
red,
dial.
straight
You
red,
want to say
red,
that? You want to say
red,
that again?
red, red, white, and blue, baby. Red, white, and blue. Um, but yeah, we came from not much. We didn't have a whole lot. I remember growing up on food stamps, and at the time, Aldi was not like the cool store to be in like it is nowadays. You know,
Yeah.
everyone, anyways. But it's this sense of dependency of no one else is going to give it to me
Right.
unless I go out there and get it.
Yeah.
And yeah, we went to church, Sundays, that was a normal thing. But it was really a self-reliance. And if I don't do it, no one else will give it to me.
I want to expand on this because I think there's something super uh, pivotal, super important here for our listeners that I don't think people see, and I think it's valuable. So, anyways, first off, in the entrepreneur community, I think there's this mindset, and I'm sure you've heard it for sure. Is this that you've seen the meme? No one is there for you, right? You've got
Mm-hmm.
to do it on your own,
No
right?
one's
So
coming to save you, right?
nobody's
Yeah.
coming to save you, right? I think that's a lie from hell, by the way.
Mm,
Jesus came to save you, right?
mm,
So I think that ties into the exact thing that you're saying, right? So if you have an entrepreneurial spirit on the positive, you are going to focus on the buck stops here, right? Like
mm.
it's all on me and I have to do this. Okay, so there's something good about that. There's
Right.
something good about grinding and pushing and striving. There's certainly people that think everything is going to be handed to them. Please don't hear me saying that that is a positive. But to believe spiritually that everything depends on you is complete crap.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those two things get blended together very easily.
Yes.
So then when you're operating spiritually or mindfully, if you want to put it that way, you're still operating like everything depends on you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really hard for entrepreneurs. And by the way, now I want to make a transition. It's the same experience with my clients who are traumatized. You may not like this next thing I'm going to say, Angelo, and other entrepreneurs out there, but the vast majority of high performers are carrying trauma
Mm. I believe that.
because they come at it from nobody was there for me when I was a kid. I might have got the crap beat out of me by my parents. Maybe my parents just weren't there at all. Maybe I had, like you're saying, an immigrant experience, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not trying to narrowly define trauma. I'm expanding it very wide. There are very few CEOs that don't dissociate. So what I'm saying is that public persona is not who they are. That's the face for the world. And in our business, we call that dissociation. There's nothing wrong with dissociation. It's really, really healthy. It's a great tool. But I want to make this comparison like dysfunction is incredibly helpful in the world's eyes.
Mm.
Dysfunction can get you lots and lots of places, right? And you and I have had these conversations about these high performing groups and pushing and striving, which is all good. But I want to also value grace. So if it all depends on you, where's the room for grace, receiving something that you don't deserve? So just want to challenge entrepreneurs and people who are experiencing and struggling with trauma to realize it doesn't all depend on you. That is a lie, and it does great damage. It does great damage. But the world is going to tell you, man, you're doing a great job. Keep pushing, keep grinding. Oh my gosh. And you look at your bank account and it's
Mm.
building
Yeah.
and you're pushing your body and you look good.
And that's easy to find those confirmations and those things and
Yeah,
find this new identity because now
it's a drug.
the sacrifice and the pain and all these things that you're putting yourself through is being confirmed by money or accolades or affirmations from other people. And it's like, yeah, I love that we're talking about this right now, because it all really does play a part of giving ourselves grace. Because when I first started my entrepreneurial journey, it was out of this sense to prove myself, right? I had just come from this career ending injury in law enforcement, and I was retired out in my late 20s. And it was such a shift in identity and purpose and all these things. And I felt like I did when I was a little kid again, like, what am I worth now? So I set out to go prove myself once again. I, if you guys are familiar with David Goggins, he uses this cookie jar analogy. And I stuffed my cookie jar with these dark emotions, with anger, with hate, with resentment. And whenever I would come into these situations in my entrepreneurial journey that would give me doubt or cause me to stumble or whatever, I dip into that cookie jar and take a bite of that. I'm like, yeah, I remember, you know what I mean? And these are things that I've discussed with you, because you're like, let's talk about some of this stuff. And I'm like, what do you mean? Well, as I'm eating my cookies, right? So in short, I say that to say that in the earlier stages of my career, even in law enforcement, I had to tap into really dark energy to get into protector
Yeah.
mode.
And the fear is, because we've talked about this too, right? And the fear is, because you said it, what if I don't have that anymore? What if I lose my cookie jar? What if I
Yeah.
lose that darkness to drive? And by the way, I want to share this with everybody again. It's the same thing my clients are talking about. What if I give up this darkness? Okay. And again, from a spiritual perspective, there's so much more offered through grace. The enemy wants to deceive us and think that darkness is going to satisfy. And the thing is, in the eyes of the world, it does, right? But then let's just take this for just 1 second. And I want to ask all the viewers, when you look out, when you see people that are driven by what Angelo is talking about, that like, let's go, and they're fueled by their pain and their hurt, is that a person you want to be like? Is that who you want to emulate?
Mm.
Or do you look at the people that are full of joy and are smiling and are happy and are just like, in a sense, a duck that just stuff sort of rolls off their back? It's like, that's okay. Now, I'm not talking about being a doormat. That's something different. All right. You know who those people are. You know those people that are like, oh, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Everything is fine. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about people that have real happiness and real joy, and that are just exuding that. I mean, I'll tell you easily the person I want to be like, but the world will tell you, drive from your dark cookie jar.
And I think, like, there's a maturity that's going to come from that, because as I'm listening to you say that now, I'm 100% with, like, yeah, I want to be happy. I want to have joy. But when you come from places where you don't have much, or you come from, some kind of traumatic experience, and you have to reprove or just even prove your self-worth, the easiest one is from that
Absolutely.
energy, that dark cookie jar,
It's
whatever.
all you have. It's all you have, and
It's
it's
all
all
you
you
have,
know. It's
right?
all you have, and it's
Because
all you know.
anger is so readily available. So much easier to be angry than it is to be happy.
Look around our world anywhere. Yeah, you have plenty of fuel. Look around your Facebook page or your Insta.
Exactly,
There's plenty of fuel
exactly.
to be angry.
And I
It
think
sells.
that, right. And I think that it's important for us to have these type of conversations, because that dark energy, that anger, that's where everyone can default to. That's easier, but there is a better way. And I think this is what Redwood was really built to do, was to show people specifically that the world's way is not the best way. I don't even want to say this is God's way, this is like versus the
Yeah.
devil's way, right? Like, some people might be like, oh, that's too big for me, I don't get it. But like, there is another side to that grind culture that's actually better. Like when I was heavily into the entrepreneurial stuff, I was, we're putting in like 100-hour weeks. We're sacrificing a ton to just get a little bit, a sliver, some crumbs from that pie. And it's an over and over and over thing. And we think that we're sacrificing for the greater good, for the greater legacy, for my family and all these things, but we're sacrificing something. That is part of the lie, is like, yeah, it's worth it. Financially, sure. But then you also got to look at what's it costing you. Your marriage, your relationship with your kids. I've been mentored by some of the most successful people, and a lot of them will say, I wish I did a little bit differently. Like, yeah, I love all the money. Like, there was a billionaire was like, yeah, this is awesome. It's great. It gives you a lifestyle. But one, people don't understand what it really means to be in the B's, to be a billionaire, and to have that kind of responsibility, and have an organization that's responsible for feeding other families, and they also realize that it took such a toll on their relationship with their wife and their kids. And some, not to say it's irreparable, but they wish they could have done it different.
Well, and it's never enough, right? You can never feed that beast enough.
Yeah.
Because there's always more. I'm gonna pull in a Simpsons reference now. So Mr. Burns was talking about, like, you're the richest man in Springfield, or it might have been in the world. I don't know what they said. And Mr. Burns turns to whoever was saying it and says, "And I'd give it all up for $1 more." I think it's really profound, right? So, like, you're just gonna keep chasing. And I said this earlier, like, it is an addiction. Like, people look down at people who are junkies or whatever. Like, it's just as much of an addiction to chase power, to chase money, to chase women, whatever it is. Maybe the results are different. You don't end up in the streets, but you still are left empty, right? And like you're saying, these guys, these entrepreneurs and women too, saying, I wish I had done it differently, right? So there's room for at least considering rest and grace, right? Maybe it's not about, and it isn't. I'm not advocating stop working, and I think that's what people hear, right?
Right. It's either or. It's so
be lazy, right? But not like, an entrepreneur can't do that. I mean, I get it, but what's wrong? What is wrong with taking one day off a week where you do literally no work? Okay. Like, I had some people say to me, it's in a different group. They're like, you're not responding. You don't respond to us. And I'm like, yeah, because on the weekend, I don't get on technology. I need a techno cleanse.
I see what you did there.
Like tech no, right? I just say tech no. Largely, I'm not completely offline, but I avoid it on the weekends. Your brain needs a break. We weren't designed. Humans were not designed for 24/7 access and inundation with our eyes. It isn't wrong. It will actually make you a stronger entrepreneur by taking a day off.
I love that.
There's a quarterly, a lot of entrepreneurs have taking a weekend off every quarter, and then at least a week a year. And by the way, the world does a lot more than that. Americans don't, but
yeah. Red, white, and blue, baby. That is true, man. You do need to prioritize that. And I think that it goes hand in hand with giving yourself grace. You need to, and I hate to say it, right? Because it sounds so like cliche, but you need to be kinder to yourself in some sense. And this doesn't always apply to everybody, because some guys need to be a little bit more harsh to themselves. They need to kick themselves in the balls.
Well, we're speaking to the high performers right now.
This is for the high performers that are the pushers, always running on high and always working, always grinding. It's a different breed, and you can kind of tell when you talk to somebody, and when you could see how packed their schedules are, and you could see the pace they run, and that stuff. Like, I like that. It attracts me, but I also know the issues that comes with running on redlining. Basically, damn near 24.
And for that group, scheduling rest is what it's going to take, right? So other people need to schedule work. But if you're in that grind space, start by scheduling 4 hours or at least scheduling a lunch break, whatever it is. But I was, because one of the things I want to go, like make it practical, right? As we're winding down.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
so
We'll wrap
what
with
does that
this.
look? I'm sorry.
We'll wrap with this. Perfect.
What does that look like, right? So I get it. Entrepreneurs want practical. Okay. So start by taking a real lunch break. Start by taking an hour every day where people can't access you and then evaluate it. I know you entrepreneurs are always looking for the outcome. Evaluate it after a month and see if your productivity doesn't go up by taking an hour off. I can't fathom that you wouldn't do better if you gave your brain a break. And that break means no phone calls, no email, no following up on your orders and messages. Because, right, it's like, oh, I'm going to take a break and I'm going to look at Instagram. Well, that's where people are messaging you, right? So, I mean, I'm talking a real break. Maybe take a 20-minute nap. Maybe do meditation or some reading. And I want to highlight one other thing too. So this is about entrepreneurs, but the other side of this coin is there are people that may not physically look like they're working hard, right? But they're working really hard at hating themselves. And you need to take a break from that too, right? So if you are the type of person that is just constantly beating yourself up and saying, I'm so horrible and I'm a loser and I haven't done anything with my life, you need to take an hour break from that. You need to take a break and tell yourself something positive. You need to take a break and find some grace for yourself. So it swings both ways. That may not look like activity and positive for the world. I get it. So you need to take a break from your anxiety. You need to take a break from your depression. You need to take a break for 1 hour and give yourself some grace.
Ooh, wee. I love that. I love that. So the question now becomes, what do you need to take a break from? I appreciate you guys for checking in. I hope this episode gave you value. For all the men out there, we do have a Facebook group that's coming out, so we would love to have you in there. We'll be a little bit more active, and it's a way for us to connect. So send us a message on Instagram and or send me an email at angelo@operationredwood.org, and we will connect with you guys soon. Appreciate you guys. We'll see you next week. Thanks, Samuel.
You're welcome. See ya.